From my perspective as finance, we do lighting as a service. I think a lot of people on Wall Street think they're very smart, and they come up and say, look, the technology is available. When you're talking about higher education, you have long-term goals. These buildings will be on your campus for a very, very long time. So it's almost, you're salivating saying, well, why isn't this being deployed a little bit more? And there's great work being done, as we all know. And I think from a distance, you say, well, these campuses are all the same. They're not. They have different budgets. They have different climates. They have different facilities. So to me, it's an eye-opener. I think this panel that we have is fantastic. We're living in an incredible time right now because the technologies are so good that you really can make some substantial, deep changes. So I think the only thing more exciting than the technologies are the guys that deploy it. So I want to bring my panel up here. We'll start with Andy O'Brien. He's the head of facilities, chief of operations at Harvard Business School. And John D'Angelo, vice president of facilities for Northwestern University. And Dennis Bailey, senior associate VP for facilities at Florida State University. We will leave some time for conversation later, and I've been charged with making sure this football gets thrown at least once today, so think of some questions as we go here. As Michael said, our panel this morning is developing comprehensive energy strategy, and just in talking to these guys, there's a wealth of information, and it is all different. So I want to just open this up as much as possible for a discussion here, and we'll play off of each other. But I do encourage you to get some questions, because that's where you're really going to start doing some learning. We'll start in no particular order, but Andy, why don't we start with you? Harvard Business School, as you were saying earlier, is a little bit separate from the university. So just give some background on what you've been doing, some of the problems you have, an overview of your energy strategy.
Okay. So the business school is one of 12 schools at Harvard, so the things I'll talk about are about the business school, not about Harvard University, just so that's a disclaimer, and those who know Harvard know that we all float on our own bottom, and we're sometimes proud of that, and other times we work well together. One of the areas we do work well together is in energy and sustainability. But just to give you a view of the business school, it's actually like a small college. So it's about, it's 40 acres. It's 2 million square feet. It's got all the different buildings you have on a college campus, residence hall, student centers, gym, a chapel, academic facilities, and whatnot. Any given day during the school year, I'll have 5,000 people on my campus on that 40 acres, which is actually in Boston, not in Cambridge, which seems like 1,000 miles away sometimes, but we're on our own there. We have our own energy plant and different things like that. So we're set up so that we can manage our energy and come up with a strategy on our own as the business school. I came to the school in 2005, and that's about when we started doing some energy strategy thinking about how we want to manage. And our first thing we did was we're going to hire an energy manager. And looking at the job description, we put this thing called "in sustainability activities as required." So in 2005, none of us, I think, had any idea how big sustainability would become in our world. And currently, this year, we have a sustainability manager that energy manager now works for. And we also have a person part-time who just is involved in engagement with the students, faculty, staff on campus to do a lot of communications and marketing type things. The things we've been paying a lot of attention to, and there's a broad array, I'm just going to cover 3 or 4 because I want to pass the ball on to my colleagues here. So demand or consumption management, if you just look at behavior, we've engaged our students, and they have student reps in each of our sections, which is 10 student reps to represent, or actually it's 20 to represent 1,800 MBA students. We engage with our executives. We have about 500 executive beds on campus like a hotel does. So we manage from behind the scenes so that their sustainability and the ways they consume our services, we manage that from an energy and management standpoint with window sensors and different things we do so that temperature setbacks, they don't know what's happening, but they all seem to be pretty happy with it most times. From the faculty side, we get a lot of engagement from our faculty, particularly the younger faculty, as probably most of you have seen in the sustainability energy world. And on our staff side, we probably have about 20 to 30 staff that make up kind of the green team, which is the backbone of our engagement with our staff. And so when we have say a peak demand day in August, where we all have to set back our temperatures or turn up our temperatures and don't take the elevator and whatnot, these folks kind of deploy out through the school, helping us manage kind of those high peak days. From a more technical standpoint, since 2005, we've done 200 energy efficiency projects on campus, ranging from big deal stuff like changing out all the chillers and changing the piping and pumping distribution so we can be more diversified and manage the flow better. We do a lot of free cooling days because we did that project, so we're getting a lot of free cooling out of our system as we set it up, to lighting changeouts. That's kind of the broad spectrum. Our consumption since 2005 is down 27%, which we see as and financially, I cranked the numbers this morning. If you use the rates we have today, that's $1.5 million this year. So every year, I tell my dean, we saved the $1.5 million. Can I have that back and invest it again? That's another story, but that's certainly an argument we can make because of the good work we've done over the past 10 years. Greenhouse gas, Harvard did not sign the president's commitment, but we do have a greenhouse gas goal. It's 30% from 2006 to 2016. The business school's been able to save 46% of our greenhouse gas emissions, and that's including a 7% growth. So those 200 investments in projects have returned a lot, both from a financial and a greenhouse gas perspective. One of the things Mike asked if I would just go deep a little bit on the capital side, because I've done about $500 million worth of capital work at the school since 2005. And the university has a very robust system for setup or managing your projects with sustainability at the forefront. So we have green building standards that become part of the RFP that goes out to designers. So first day, designers know they're in this world where they have to think about sustainability as part of the design. We break our projects up into different tiers. So the top tier is the full gut renovation and whatnot. And so I'll talk about that for a second. We have goals as we set up our charrettes. We do 3 charrettes in every big project, one at the kickoff, one at SD, one at DD. And then folks who want to go through a value engineering effort and they want to cut all the sustainability projects, we have a little bit more of a conversation about that. We use life cycle costing tools to get net present value type out of different decisions we make. So it's been pretty robust as we've gone through our 10 years, and we've learned a lot. Here's one thing I'll share, and then I'll pass it on to John. Financially, you can empower people to be creative and think about decisions. So in my capital project, say it's a $100 million new residence hall project, I'll take a piece, $500,000, and I'll give it to my sustainability manager, and that's their budget. And they get to push back on the capital project managers who want to take all their money and apply it to other things for their project. And it has allowed me to kind of just change the power structure a little bit and these green ideas that get integrated into the design of the buildings. And now what I see is they collaborate with one another, take each other's, but we'll pay for that out of your budget, okay? And then they come and tell me what they're doing. So they're actually working together before I have to make a decision that makes one of them upset or whatnot. So with that, I'll pass it on to John.
Thanks, Ann. It's pretty impressive stuff. Northwestern is a university that was founded in 1851. It is the only private and one of the larger private research institutions in the country, but the only private in the Big Ten. We are about 13 million square feet between the Evanston and Chicago campuses. Another little over 500,000 square feet in our various outreach campuses between Doha, Miami, San Francisco, New York City, and Washington, D.C. About 20,000 students, primarily at the Chicago and Evanston campus, 8,000 undergrad. The rest are graduate students, a lot of postdocs as well. We have a pretty robust capital construction program going on right now. I have about $1.7 billion in active projects with another $500 million to award over the next 6 months or so. Very heavy into research, especially biomedical and nanoparticle and some real high-end physics stuff. But we also have just completed one of the newest music buildings in the country, and I'm constructing brand new collaborative residence halls all over the place. One of the things I'm most proud of at Northwestern, as I mentioned, we're Big Ten. Most of our teams actually have winning seasons, and we have the highest graduation rate and the highest GPA in the NCAA. Our 505 student athletes are students first, and some of the things that they do are really just amazing that they have time with all of their studies to be able to be top-tier student athletes. In addition to the capital side, I've got about a $220 million annual operating budget. A big chunk of that is utilities, a little over $50 million, about $1.64 a second is my utility spend. About 60% of that is natural gas. The rest is electricity. Have, similar to Andy, 3 big goals that are all 2020 goals. Reduction in greenhouse gas, we had a 30% goal. We're looking at reevaluating that. We're at 27% right now for the 13 million square feet. And we think that we're going to be able to surpass that 30%. And so we want to get that measuring stick out there before we hit it. 20% in energy usage index, we're just over halfway on that one. Some of the things that we've done haven't really impacted yet. They're coming. The 1,000 or so ECMs that we've completed, we're just now starting to see those kick in. We've averaged about a 6, almost 7-year simple payback for the ECMs, but we don't have payback as a yardstick. If it's the right thing to do for resiliency, redundancy, and reliability of the systems, we're going to do it. And if we get energy payback, then that's a bonus. Really proud that we've gotten about a $2 million worth of rebate checks from our local utility companies, and those were not calculated into the simple paybacks. Let's see, we also have a 30% reduction in landfill goal, and we're about 20% of the way there. We've just gone to single stream waste reduction, and we're hoping that that's going to lift us up over the top of that goal. Some of the stuff that we've done, similar to Andy, I'm a big believer in incentivizing. You get what you incentivize. So breaking out separate as part of every capital program a green piece of funding and allowing that to have a voice at the table as opposed to being driven away from the table through value engineering and others, I think is a best practice. We also have something unique. I've got a 400,000 pound per hour steam plant that both that and my 4,000 ton chill plant use lake water for single pass non-contact cooling. So if you ever see an overhead in Northwestern and you see the pond, that's my cooling pond for the single pass lake water use for cooling. Gives me no cooling towers on campus, which is something that coming out of Manhattan, where every square foot of rooftop was a cooling tower, and obviously, especially after this, I guess it was last year or the year before, I guess last year, the issues they had with legionellosis, that's one problem I don't have to worry about on the cooling towers. The other thing that we've done is on the non-lab buildings, we've really gone to geothermal. We use a lot of radiant sails, a lot of chilled beams, very few forced air. On the labs, which tends to be a pretty good chunk of my space, we've put in demand control ventilation, especially for all the fume hoods. We had about 12 air changes per hour in a lot of those labs, primarily being driven by fume hood makeup. We're now down to 4 air changes per hour in the labs, 2 on occupancy sensors when those labs are unoccupied, and that's about 14 hours a day that they're unoccupied. So all in, it's a lot of fun. We have LEED Silver as a minimum for all new construction projects. Last 2 that we just got in were both came in at LEED Gold, so we're proud of both of those as well. But it's a lot of fun. I've got a great team, and one of the tricks I think in some of the success we've had is making the team function as a single unit as opposed to independent business units with independent goals. So bringing them together, one of the things that I was able to do is we have a common metric set that my leadership team all signs off on, and it includes key performance indicators from each of my business units, and they are all co-evaluated on their annual appraisals and on our monthly business reviews on the success of the entire set as opposed to just their individual metrics. So again, I'm a big believer in you get what you incentivize. And with that, I'll pass to Dennis.
I guess it's too late to quit, right? I'm going to go first next time if we do this, all right?
Yeah.
I'm Dennis Bailey. I'm with Florida State University. We're one of 12 public universities in the state university system in Florida. We've got almost 42,000 students. We've got about 450 acres on our main campus in Tallahassee, another 600 acres on a separate campus where some of our athletic venues and research venues are. Budget's about $1.3 billion. About half of that's appropriated. About half of that's tuition we collect, the state takes back, and then gives it back to us in some magnanimous gesture of being appropriated funds. Facilities, we have about 700 people. We've got a budget of about $60 million, about 25 of that's utilities. We've got about 14 million total gross square feet in Tallahassee. About 7.5 million of that is ENG space. The challenge we have is we're broke, pretty much. I mean, our claim to fame is we were the most efficient university in U.S. News and World Report in years 13 and 14. We plummeted to the second most efficient university in 15, and that's measured by the production of the students and faculty, some formula used, divided by the resources available for that production. Well, we're like 97 in the top, in the numerator. The denominator is 216, which means we're 216th out of however many they measured, but I don't think there was a lot more than 216. So we struggle with the financial part of that equation. So I think that what we have done is really focus on energy management as a survival technique and energy savings to try to keep the place floating, keep the programs and the mission intact. We started in earnest in our most recent, and we started doing performance contracting in 1997. So we've been doing that for a while. Our most recent kind of earnest effort at energy savings started after, I think it was in 2007 or 8 when we hired our first energy engineer. He started working on programs on campus, and our focus is on demand management. We knew that the cheapest, most efficient, most sustainable, most environmentally friendly unit of energy that you can have is the one you don't use. So we really are focusing hard on demand management and reducing our consumption. And we've worked pretty good at that. We've come under budget pretty dramatically every year since we started that initiative. And I will say that the cost of fuel coming down has helped that a little bit. We buy our electricity and natural gas from the city of Tallahassee. Have no other option there. We get no rebates. They get no deals. It's just whatever they say the rate is, that's the rate. So we don't really have the ability to manage that supply side very much. So that's all on our demand side. We've done a lot of effort on process simplification. We found that we were getting some projects and some systems and equipment and pieces in that were very state-of-the-art and very complicated. And if we could ever get them all running the way they're supposed to originally, when the project turned over, we couldn't keep it that way. So we found that we were losing a big chunk of some of the sophistication because we just couldn't keep it working the way it was supposed to work. So we've kind of reverted back to where we're not trying to get that 97th and 98th percentile of energy. We're looking more at the 85th percentile. And to put in place something we can actually maintain, we believe that's a more sustainable option than starting off at the very high end and wind up with the switch in hand because you can't figure out how to keep the auto part working. So we worked hard on that. It's been very successful. We dropped our KBTUs per GSF about 15% since 2008, and that's with adding a bunch of research buildings. We've added probably 1.5 million square feet of high-intensity research buildings during that time. We're still able to drop our consumption rate. We're working hard on fume hood air changes. I think that's a big opportunity for research schools. We too our target is four changes per hour at unoccupied status. So we're working with the researchers. We're working with our environmental health and safety group and our energy team to figure out how we can make sure everyone's on board with what we're doing. Part of what I think has helped us get good support is not only have we used some of the non-recurring savings to help replenish our in-house. We take $1 million a year out of our savings and use it for in-house energy management projects. And we let our utilities folks figure out what that is, and then I approve it. In addition to that, about 5 years ago, we took about $2 million of our recurring savings out of our budget and used it for faculty raises. So the idea that utility savings could be used for faculty raises got a lot of support for the energy conservation program on campus. So you might think about that if you got an extra $2 million laying around out of your energy budget. But we're simple. We're on the other side of the tracks from the high end folks, but we've been pretty successful. Again, we've done well with what we have, I think, and we got a lot of projects going. Our appropriations have been stymied. We're not allowed to raise tuition. We're not allowed to borrow money. Other than that, we can do whatever we want, pretty much. So what we can do, though, is through energy performance contracting, we can write a contract up to $10 million with the performance contractor providing the funding. So we can leverage our energy savings portions with capital improvement projects that are related, and maybe we have to kick in $100,000 a month or some kind of number like that, or $200,000 a year or whatever, to help offset the cost of the energy savings doesn't cover over that 10-year or 12-year or 20-year contract, but it is a way for us to get access to cash at a low interest rate market and do some of the things we have to do. So we're trying to be creative, and whenever you're 216th, you have no option but to be creative if you're going to survive. So that's a little view from the other side of the looking glass.
That's fantastic. One of the things that came up is the differences in approaches. And I'm just going to skip ahead for a second and get to a question that I wanted to have later. But you brought it up, Dennis. I think it's really important. Just talk about funding for a second. Two things. How much of this is new build? Okay, so it's great to have the new lab come in and have the state-of-the-art everything. But how much across the panel here is new build versus retrofits of existing buildings? And as you mentioned this morning, I think it's really interesting to say, look, we're putting in a new student center. That's great. It's going to cost whatever this building is going to cost, $25 million. But I know if I put state-of-the-art stuff, it may increase the cost a bit. And there's kind of competing interests there because life cycle analysis would say, put that thing in right now. It's going to cost a little bit more upfront, but there's budgetary constraints. So just talk about the ratio of retrofits versus new builds, where you're putting a lot of your energy conservation measures, and also the budgeting. How do you fix that internal struggle that's always there?
Well, I'll start off on that since it's near and dear to my heart. Certainly, we as we're doing something new, we do want to incorporate state of the art to the extent we can support state of the art. We don't like being on that bleeding edge and this getting something that's guaranteed for 20 years from a company who's been in business for 2 years.
Yep.
So we're not really sure that's a good investment. But we do recognize the value of life cycle costing, and we embrace that. And we don't value engineer out the items that can provide support to our program over the life of the building at the expense of prettier furnishings in the grand lobby. We can always go back and change the finishes and the furnishing in the lobby if we need for more funding, but we can't go back and change to put in a more efficient air handler after the building's built. So those are things that we have campus standards, And we give those to the designers, and a lot of those are built around infrastructure issues and design standards. Our LEED Silver is our design standard. No one's allowed to value engineer anything out that affects the changes, the design standards, unless I okay that. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to change the carpet or if you want to change something else, maybe, because that stuff you can go back and fix later. But the stuff that you can't fix, we don't change that.
That's good. We're, to answer your first question, it's almost all retro. I'm a land poor university. Historically, we've built about 720,000 square foot of new footprint every decade. My current capital plan, I'm doing that about every 2.25 years, but most of those are in various stages of completion, and so they haven't kicked in yet. So the majority of our energy usage index savings, not the majority, just about all of those energy usage index are on the existing footprint. Oldest building goes back to 1871, and it's a beautiful building, but it's all pretty much retro. I don't have the same financial challenges that Dennis has, but I think what he's put in place from a controls perspective really are best practices regardless of where you are financially. We've, especially with the ability now with the current build program, instead of paying for each architect to develop separate mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, I went out and got an engineering firm and took our old Northwestern standards, converted them into specifications for all of the CSI sections dealing with MEP, plus a bunch of others that I don't want to have a lot of variability in, vertical transportation, et cetera. And so now when I do a design award, the designer gets the specifications and says, use these. If you want to come in with a suggested alternate, then there's about 75 levels of approval, which has really retrained, I think, a lot of our architects. So I'm not even seeing very many requests to do something that's outside of our standards. And what that has helped us do is a lot of the things that used to come to the table as potential VEs now don't even come to the table anymore. And so we're really looking at things that are much more painful, I think, and in those certain cases, if it's going to affect program, we've adopted the strategy of going out and getting more money to afford the program, as opposed to let's keep the program but sacrifice the performance of the building. We know as a land poor university, I can't just go build a brand new one and then go demo this one. So we want to build the buildings where they're going to, the building themselves with service life extension programs are going to be there 100 years from now.
Yep, absolutely. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, so as you look at the business school, we've grown 7%, and that's about 150,000 square feet over the past 10 years, and spending a lot of capital. So even though my financial position is different than Dennis's, I'll use other people's money to invest in my facilities, and one of the things we do in these design charrettes is find incentives and rebates as we go through, and a lot of those are geared towards, say, photovoltaics, which end up paying you back every year because they're contributing to your energy profile. So we've got about 300 kilowatts of photovoltaics. It's not huge, but it contributes. We've got some cogeneration facilities in our new buildings. We have a domestic solar hot water system in one of our exec ed residence halls connected to our kitchen. So at places where it makes sense, we'll tap into some rebates and incentives and put some of these more kind of cutting edge things. They're all proven, so I don't feel like I'm on the bleeding edge. But we'll put those into our buildings.
I'm curious, just to start from the beginning, where's the motivation to make these changes, right? I mean, in some ways, it'd be easier for you guys. You know how your buildings operate, to leave it be. Is it coming from you to say, I want to be more efficient, or is it coming from top down? I mean, you seem to have it from both sides, but where's the motivation to even begin to look at this? It's going to mean in the short term a lot more work for you. And possibly in the long term too. We'll get that in a second. But where's the motivation come from within your organization?
I think that it is easy, and we had a discussion the other night at one of the roundtables that traditionally our role had hidden in the boiler room, and I think that our role has changed significantly and is in the process of still changing. The successful people in the audience right now are people who don't hide in the boiler room. They're out in the boardroom. And I don't think that it's one or another that's driving it. I think that simultaneously the students, the senior leadership, the facilities VPs, and really the community expectations are all moving at the same time in the same direction. So each culture has its own pace and its own desire on how much they want to be bleeding edge versus leading edge versus let me call 5 of my peers and see what they've done and which one they suggest in common as the most successful. But I think that it's really not so much that this group or that group or this group is driving it. I think everybody is starting to move in the same pace in that same direction.
I think that's true. I mean, we obviously the administration's interested in the bottom line, the budget, how it's going to affect things, whether there's a payback, or if we spend our money on this, what are we not going to be spending it on, and what impact does that have? So we've got to work all of those things up. But I think the driver is really coming primarily from within our department, because we're trying to figure out how to keep the budget intact and keep everything going that we know needs to be going. And in addition to that, we get feedback and input from a lot of student groups, faculty groups, and administration on things they want to do and they don't want to sacrifice in order to accomplish some of this infrastructure stuff that it's just kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
You know, a new control system in a building, maybe you walk in and it feels better, and maybe it's saving money, but it looks just exactly the same, and maybe even functions pretty well the same. So we've got to sell that case, and we've also still have to spend money on things that people recognize. And when you don't have a lot, it's really a balancing act. But fortunately, our administration has been very supportive of the energy conservation, the demand management initiative, and they've been quite willing to help us get some fine capital, invest, and recognize. And again, they see each month that we're coming in another couple $100,000 under budget, and that's kind of like an annuity for them, you know. So it works out great because we don't get to keep the excess. We give it back to the university. If we run out, we say, okay, we either need some more money or we're going to shut down because we can't. But so thus far, for the last maybe 8 or 10 years, we've done pretty well, and got a nice little kitty that they're sitting on. But they've saved it, you know, except for that little crazy idea about faculty salaries. The rest of it's pretty much been kept for a rainy day because we know rates are going to go back up, and we know we're going to have capital needs. So it's kind of sitting there, and it's kind of a rainy day fund. So I'm very comfortable with that.
Well, you have to have great discipline. You must have to have a different.
You didn't hear that, Chris.
You must have a different type of discipline. You have the money there. Where's the motivation coming from? Is it top down saying we want to try this new?
It's students, certainly. It's faculty. It's, you know, there's an awareness, there's social awareness, and there's financial awareness about this. And they kind of come together in this playing field, which is good for us, right? So the senior administration is willing to invest because they see the financial. The students and faculty behind it, they'll sacrifice and set their temperature at 72 degrees, God forbid, and be willing to take that hardship on because they're saving the planet. So, but one thing I would add that these folks didn't bring up, but I think is relevant, is these goals we set as institutions. 30% greenhouse gas reduction from 2006 to 2016, including growth. That's became a focusing point for us. So we've been paying a lot of attention, and we measure it on all the different decisions we make. So I do think it's important as an institution, you got to set these goals. And it may be a greenhouse gas goal, it may be an energy savings goal, as the fellow from UC Irvine was talking about. But those aspirational goals, where you think you can achieve them or not, they focus your efforts and actually help to drive success. So
I'll bring it down a little bit. You guys are rightly proud of a lot of the great work that you have done. Just quickly go over some obstacles you ran into and actually some failures that you had. I think it's important to talk, and we don't need to have this too long, okay?
No, I'll go first. I got one, which is like a flaming failure that I'm willing to admit and show.
We're just talking about facilities.
Yeah, well, oh, man. I'm not going to tell you about anything else there. I think it had to be about 2006, 2007, and I hope there's no one in this audience that has any relationship to this. It was a green screen that would tell you how your performance in the building was doing. And so we just finished the renovation of one of our 1928 residence halls, and we wanted to show all the great things we had done as sustainability investments. We bought the green screen, we bought the software, we bought all the stuff. We had the senior VP from the university here to show it, and we couldn't get the thing working. We could not get that thing working no matter how much we tried. We just, in the dark of night, took them down and acted like it never happened. It was just, they had put it in the newspaper. So that was a kind of glaring, we learned from that. Not to market before you show success.
Good takeaway. If it doesn't work, pretend it never happened.
Yeah, that's right. You guys could do better than that, I'm sure.
I'm not even going to try to do better than that one. That's a good one. But I'd kind of turn it a little bit. One of the things I'm most proud of is, in my mind, sustainability. It's a great social issue. Obviously, the energy and the landfill piece are great cost savers, and especially if you can recoup the money to invest back into your infrastructure. But for me, it's really all about redundancy, reliability, and recoverability. And I use those three to really define the fourth R, which is resiliency. And so haven't had to explore at Northwestern, but prior to Northwestern, I was at New York Presbyterian Hospital, and our programs had really those common drivers. We really wanted to improve our resiliency as a major hospital in a pretty urbanly developed area of the world called Manhattan. And when Superstorm Sandy hit, it was really one of the proudest moments of my life. I had 7 hospitals in Manhattan, and all 7 of my hospitals rode the storm through. There were 5 other hospitals that really hadn't invested either in resiliency or in any of its components, the energy management piece, et cetera, that closed very publicly on national TV, one of which had to evacuate their named donor via cell phone light down 14 floors on a stretcher who was on life support. And we became the receiver site for a lot of those hospitals. So to me, as a facilities guy, I know that we get hired and fired based on time, on budget construction, but it's really the ops side that is the fun part of it and the challenging part of it, and the thing that you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in a deep sweat over, not the construction piece. Although the Sun Devil Stadium project, that one I'd wake up in sweats on. So Bruce, wherever you are out there, you got me. So building in the resiliency. And what the resiliency does, twofold. I think it gives you the capabilities to be able to continue to improve both student and faculty engagement, and it gives you the capacity for continued growth. Most of us have local utility transformers on our campuses that haven't been changed out since the 50s, and if you look at your building loads and what they've done, how many desktop computers did you have in the 50s? How many other plug load draws did you have in the 50s? Well, you're cranking on those transformers that are already beyond their service life. So if you can do things to drive down, you probably have a larger opportunity to drive down your own demand side, as Dennis said, than you do to get the utility company to come in and actually meet the life cycle of those different transformers. So for me, it's really about resiliency.
We've been fortunate lately that we haven't had any major problems that I'm aware of. Now, there may be something out there that hasn't quite made it to me yet, but we did, as I mentioned earlier, we started doing performance contracting back in 1997, and we did a lot. Our normal operating structure or methodology at that time was just get a performance contractor to come in, tell us what all we needed to do, tell us what the bill was, tell us the payback, and get out of the way and let it all happen. And a lot of that was good. We relamped the whole campus about 3 times, and I'm not sure we ever got the payoff of the first one before we. But anyhow, I think we saved a lot of money. But some of the things we did, things like reheat pipes in the supply air or the return air section of the duct that would plug up with dirt and crap, and we finally had to take a hacksaw and cut them out, and we had some airflow controllers that, in a lab or on the drawing board, they look like it worked just fine, but when you get in real field conditions, and they're controlling things, and we can't. So we learned a lot, and that's why we work very closely with the PC now in setting up the program, modifying the scope. We won't even investigate. So, okay, we want to look at these 3 items. Yep. Don't spend time over here. There's nothing behind the curtain. Look at these items here and give us a proposal based on that. And we drive a lot of that with our internal engineering, and we're a lot more successful today, I think.
Yeah, that's the risk of being too cutting edge there, right? I mean, you don't know what you have until it's in. Do you normally do this in one building, identify a spot, or is there a series, as we were speaking yesterday, a series of pilot projects where you say, this is something that's new, we think it's promising, it's maybe commercially proven, but we haven't seen it campus-wide. Maybe you don't have colleagues that have deployed it to that scale. How do you guys look at that? You say, this is a great measure. It could be lighting. Do you just don't go all hog across the board, or just individual sites?
Yeah, obviously pilot. You start with a pilot, and you want to do it in a place that you can build enough or generate enough excitement, but and still be transparent when it doesn't meet what your goals were. So we've made the decision that we're going to put the goals out there, and we're going to publish that we're hopeful to achieve. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We think that we gain more engagement from our various stakeholders by being honest in our failures as well as our successes, but definitely started in a pilot.
We're getting down to the last 7 minutes. I'd love to have some audience questions. We'll leave some if there aren't. But I think one of the key questions that we were talking about, which we touched on in the beginning, but you're putting in new designs sometimes wholly new technology that you hadn't experienced. And it was touched on yesterday in a couple of the talks. How is your, do you now need to re-engineer who your forces to take care of these things? It gets more complicated. Great, you'll have more savings, but are you saving money over here and bleeding out the other end because you actually have to hire more advanced M&V? I mean, how do you look at this? Because it does change, in fact, the way you have to monitor these things and maintain.
I'll take that for 1 second. I think there's a short-term problem as we do put these complex building management controls and different things into these buildings, which do a fantastic job when you can get them working right. But you do need people skilled in working them. The short-term problem is there's not a lot of people out there. The long-term, and I think it was mentioned somewhere, and we've done this. We've invested in co-ops from facilities management programs in the Boston area that we know of, and we bring them into our system, and they work with, say, the union guys. And these young kids actually know these computer systems better than the folks that have the experience. And 2 times now, we've had these co-ops who have joined us. So we've hired them out of school. And this is a long program, but I'm hopeful that these 2 and 2 more behind them and 2 more after them, and we just start a feeder program of homegrown. They know my university. They understand the systems. They love, whether it's Siemens or Johnson's or whatever, they love digging in. So that's my hope, that they end up being the ones who kind of save us in the end. In the meantime, you just call up your contractors and have them come fix the things that they told me would never break. But we're hopeful that the workforce will catch up.
You guys just want to talk to that? Are you saving money but adding complexity?
Well, I mean, we've got our maintenance team who's, a lot of them have been around for a long time, so they're pneumatic guys, and and that ship's kind of sailed to the extent we can. We still got pneumatic systems, but whenever we have the opportunity, we replace the compressed air system in a building just because that's a high-end maintenance draw. The approach we're taking, and we've just started this over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that I think has a real chance of being successful, is our engineering team has been recruiting interns out of our College of Engineering. Yeah. And they come and work for us for 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 4 semesters. And as they work for us, we can't compete with the market to hire starting wages on engineers. We just can't do that. What we can do, though, is create an environment that they like, people they like, in a city where they've gone to school and they really like it and they have friends and they know what time the bars close and all that kind of stuff. So we're in the process of negotiating with the first 2 electrical engineers to fill 2 electrical engineering slots we have. Awesome. Now our draw is that if you want to be a PE, you can work with one of our PEs on staff for 5 years, working with us, get your PE license, and then if you want to move on for big bucks, you can do that. But you got experience, you're comfortable, you're there. And if we can get 5 years out of these people, we're going to make this be a dramatic improvement. So that's kind of where we're at. We got about 8 or 9 interns working for us right now.
And the quick fill answer between the two programs of Andy and Dennis. We try not to look at things as unique problems. We try and get as many problems lined up as we can and drive a stake through all of them at once. One of our community engagement activities is called the Northwestern Skilled Trades Program, where we take high school graduating seniors that aren't going to, generally for financial reasons, make it into college, and we give them a 1-year paid apprenticeship in the various trades where we need the trades help. And at the end of that 1 year, they either graduate from the program and we hire them, or they don't graduate through the program and we'll help them with resume building skills and put them in contact with some of our contractors. So our first cadre, we actually graduated 2 of the 6 early. They had completed everything. They're able to go out on their own and handle service calls. The end of this month, the end of April, is the actual graduation date, and of the 4 remaining, I'm very confident that 2 are going to get hired by Northwestern, and 2 we're going to help them find a job with a contractor. After having the first cohort, the names that we got in competition, about 30 young kids. First cohort, we had 10 names to hire 6. We now have 30 to hire 6. And amongst these are some unbelievable, great people. They're coming in obviously for the benefits, and because of some of the good news that the skilled trades people. I think not doing that is going to be a bigger cost than doing that. I've got 351 people working for me that average age is 56, average tenure is 24 years. Nobody is going to trade schools anymore in any significant quantity. In Chicago, our materials on the new construction side is got a national average multiplier of 0.86, so I can buy stuff cheaper in Chicago. But my complete construction is a 1.25 multiplier, and it's because of both skilled and unskilled labor shortages. So for those that aren't doing something to develop that next cadre, then I think you're going to have a hard time finding them. And these kids are coming with those skills, as Andy said. My son had a cell phone since he was 4 years old, I think, at this point. So they're used to these things.
Absolutely. Michael, how are we doing on time? Do we have time for a few questions? Yeah, okay. Yes, I'll leave you with 2. First of all, do most of the projects that you have engaged in that have been successful, are they as advertised? I mean, if you're looking to save 25%, is it, yeah, we got it in there and it's good, but we maybe hit half of that? I mean, are you pretty happy with the ECM measures that you've put in place, number 1? And number 2, you are looking to save money and you are looking to go green, and those things, you can check those boxes. What's the experience been like for the faculty and your clients and students? If you had redone this building, does it feel better and the air quality, is the light better? Yeah, you can save money, but if you walk in and it's those old squiggly bulbs where it was a diminished experience, do you find that above the green, above the savings, that the actual experience is all about performance?
Yeah, the engagement is way more than the dollars. Having engaged faculty and engaged students is way more than you could ever save out of your energy budget. So you have to be very thoughtful. You want lighting that has a high color rendition index. You don't want compact fluorescence,
sure,
et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's very important.
So for me, the proof's in the numbers. So we've saved a lot on the consumption side. I said 27% over 10 years, and on the emission side, 46%. So the things we've been investing in are showing results on the bottom line. And just hard stop there. You can dig deeper and say, are we doing the right energy modeling? Does the building you get at the end match your energy model? Can anyone raise their hand and say, yeah, that absolutely is true? Because I can't. I have always gone back and said, tell me about this energy model. So we're trying to figure out, how do you go back after the building's done and check that energy model that you based all your decisions on? That's just one small snapshot of something we're chasing down now to see if the decisions we've made have delivered in the end. So
Again, we're sticking with things that we think are simple enough. Insulation, you not really have to question that. The lighting. We've embraced LED lighting almost completely, so I mean it's not really. And now that the fixtures and the lamps are dependable and available, and a reasonable payback cost, that's what we use. So you save, you don't have to worry about whether that LED is going to save energy. It just it comes in. Some of the more complex things we're doing because some are required, some you just can't really get to where you want to go without them, but we're monitoring those with our partner, building management system partners.
Great. We have time for a couple questions, right? We do have the ball here. Anybody? Am I okay to throw this? It's not going to be a spiral. It's up here.
It's pretty good for a goalie.
Hey! Nice job. You spiked the ball too
Just
early.
talking to the box.
Where do you want me to talk? Right
That's
there.
it, yeah.
This is a question for Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, Harvard obviously have a reputation, sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. You've got resources, and yet you mentioned that your president did not sign the climate commitment. Can you give us some insight into why and what the rationale was?
I absolutely cannot. I don't know. I don't know that our goal is that much different, let's say, than the president's, than the larger goal that, I don't know, like 300 presidents have signed. But they decided not to. And I honestly didn't have much influence at all on that decision. I kind of followed the track that they set out for us, and I'm happy to follow their lead in that case, but I can't tell you why they didn't sign the agreement.
Anybody else? Yeah, a little easier captured on film.
One of the common things that we have on, when we're going to proposal is we'll get a value engineering proposal to eliminate the LEED certification process. The thought process being, oh, we've built the savings in there, you really don't need the process, that's just a waste of money. How do you answer that one?
I mean, I'll
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're educational institutions, and thank God for LEED, because they've put us all on this track that we all now follow and understand, and even my students understand what LEED is. So if I open a new building and I can't say that it's LEED Gold or Platinum, then I've underachieved in what I'm doing for the for my school. So LEED, you know, though it may cost a few bucks, in the end, these are buildings we're going to keep for 300 years or however long, you know. It's not something that we dispose of over time for a financial gain. So it's worth the investment, it's worth the certification, it's worth the award. So we do invest in those.
I don't allow any purchase points. I don't want any cheapies. I really want the deep lead. I want what LEED was really intended to drive, which is a better performing facility. You know, and I have it a little bit easier being a private. I don't have to follow any state procurement rules. So if I have a designer that pushes back, I can thank him for his service and wish him well on his next opportunity outside of Northwestern.
I like that. We don't purchase points either. That's just a we want the LEED certification where it makes sense. Now we did a parking garage, and you know we didn't have enough occupied space or any to qualify at the time, so that wasn't LEED. But I mean, as far as the traditional buildings that you would want to be LEED, we expect that to be part of it. We've internalized a lot of the LEED process, so we don't really. It doesn't cost us as much as it once did. And we would commission buildings, whether it's a LEED building or not. So there's just some of the difference between our building, a LEED building, and not isn't a lot of difference. Filling out the paperwork and paying whatever the application price is.
Any other questions? Michael, we're good? We're good on time? A little over time, yeah. Thanks, guys. I mean, there's.
All right. Good job.
Thank you. Good job.
Don't forget your coat.
I got it.
Thanks, Mike.